From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on this 6th day of September 2016. It is a Tuesday. I know. Back to back days for the first time in about 3 weeks. Hopefully, we'll get you right through the end of the week here. We got a lot going on today. College football rankings coming out, which is where we'll start. Major League Baseball, of course, with the Mets and the Yankees both playing a little later tonight. A little bit of hockey coming at you today with the World Cup of Hockey coming up very, very soon, and the preseason immediately following. Also, touch on the NFL. We'll get a lot more into the NFL tomorrow with the Panthers and Broncos coming up on Thursday. And we'll also get into the weekend of games. So Thursday will pretty much be our NFL show, including the picks. But we'll begin today with the top 25 rankings. And for those of you who have seen it, I think you guys may have had the same reaction I did when I saw some of these moves. Now, when I had the teams come in, I had said, looking at the losses and looking at the wins, I had what was it? I had Miami, Wisconsin, possibly Texas, and I think one other team in and a couple of other teams out. Well, three of the teams that I had expected to be in were in. The only difference was I was not expecting them to be where they were in the rankings. Wisconsin and Texas were in. Here's my thing with Wisconsin and Texas. I believe all the teams that I said Miami was going in. Yeah, I was right. Miami was in. I said Texas A&M would be in. Wisconsin, and the Hurricanes. I said Florida would be out. They are out. UCLA would be out. North Carolina would be out. Who else did I say was going to be out? I don't remember who I said was going to be out. I don't remember the fourth team that I said was going to be out. I'll probably go through during the break. I'll probably go through the teams that I said were going to be out. But I mean, these were massive moves that you saw here. Ole Miss dropping 8 places after losing to a team that came into the game at number 4 in the country. That is a huge drop for a team that is so good and for a game that was so close. Florida State only won 45-34. Ole Miss was in the game, and they still dropped them 8 places. Compare that to Notre Dame, who again lost in double overtime, but lost to an unranked Texas team. They dropped 8 places as well. And for the Tennessee Volunteers, there is no excuse for what happened against Appalachian State. They dropped from 9 to 17. Okay, that was a big drop for them. LSU on the loss to Wisconsin, they should have fallen, and they did. They fell from 5th to 21st in the rankings. That is a huge drop. And Oklahoma pretty much switches places with Houston as they drop to number 14. As I said, I thought how close that game with South Dakota State with TCU was going to hurt them, and it did. They dropped from 13 to 15, even on the win. But now you get into the top 10 and top 11, which looks a lot different than what you would have expected them to look. Alabama and Clemson are still 1 and 2. Then by 3 points, Florida State is number 3. Clemson has 1,416 points. Florida State has 1,413. That was a very close first, second, and third. Florida State number 3. They move up 1 after the win last night. Ohio State moves up 2, thanks in part to the loss to LSU and by how big their win was. Michigan State, same thing, same deal. They're number 5. Michigan is number 5 now. Houston jumps up from number 15 to number 6 after beating Oklahoma. You have Stanford move up 1 because of the loss because of LSU's loss. And Oklahoma's loss for that matter. Washington, same thing. They move up. They move up 6 after their win against Rutgers. Georgia moves up to 9th, from 18th to 9th, after beating number 22 North Carolina. And I'm sorry, if you are a top team like that, to beat a team that's only a couple ranks below you does not garner a 9-place move in the rankings. For me, I thought that was a little excessive, and especially when they go and play Nicholls State next, which is going to be a blowover game. There's no other way to describe it. It's a blowover game. Then you get to the 2 that really surprised me, and that is number 9 and number 10. That is number 10 and number 11. Wisconsin and Texas. Wisconsin had 42 points to get into the top 25 at the beginning of the season. Texas had 12. Wisconsin beats number 5 LSU. Texas beats number 10 Notre Dame. Wisconsin goes to number 10. Texas goes to number 11. Number 11. And obviously that has a lot to do with 1, Oklahoma losing, 2, Notre Dame losing, which was in Texas control. That's what a lot of that has to do with. But to go from effectively 36th in the nation to 11th off of 1 win, that's a huge swing. That is a very big swing. Louisville won their game 70-14. They went from 19th to 13th. Texas beats a number 10 Notre Dame team in double overtime, and they go from effectively 36th to 11th. 36th to 11th. You want to talk about a massive jump for a program that means a lot to college football. That is it. That is a huge jump. Meanwhile, Texas A&M beats UCLA. Granted, it's a number 16 team, but UCLA goes from 27th to 20th. And Texas goes from 36th to 11th on a double overtime win. A&M had UCLA beat the entire game. And they only go up 7. Texas goes to double overtime against the number 10 ranked Notre Dame team and goes up 25 places. When I saw that, I almost fell out of my chair. That is a huge boost for Texas. Meanwhile, A&M beats a number 16 UCLA and they only go up to 20th. Granted, I understand there's a 6-point difference. There's a 6-position difference in the rankings, but if you actually watch those two games, A&M was in control from first whistle to end whistle. They were in control of that game. Texas Notre Dame, that was a toss up the entire night. That entire night, you didn't know who was winning. Then you have Baylor and Oregon sitting firm at 23 and 24. Oklahoma State actually went down a rank after beating Southeastern Louisiana 61-7. They actually went down a rank. If I were the guys, if I had an AP vote, I would have had LSU go down to number 22 just because of how stupid the game plan was and how thick-headed they were to not change it. Then, as I said, the Hurricanes go up to number 25. So that knocks Florida out, that knocks UCLA out, that knocks North Carolina out. Auburn wasn't ranked. Let's see, who was the last? Who was? Let me try to get. Let me try to get last week's rankings here. But yeah, when I saw where Texas and Wisconsin were, Wisconsin I can somewhat understand because they beat a number 15 team. They beat a top 5 team. So I can see why they would be where they are. Texas beat a number 10 team in double overtime. And they get vaulted pretty much into the top 10. And Notre Dame plummets. That's a lot. That is a big move. That is a massive move. I think a little too, to be honest, I think it's a little too big. I agree with Texas being in the top 25. As I said yesterday, I thought they would be. I agree with Texas being in the top 25, but not at number 11. They should be somewhere around 15. They should be in between 15 and 20 is where they should be. So let's see. Oh, USC was out. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that right off the bat. USC was out. So I was right. I had it right. I had Miami, Wisconsin, A&M, and Texas in. Florida, UCLA, North Carolina, and USC out, and I was perfect this week. How many times is that going to happen? It's pretty doggone good there. That's pretty good. I don't think this. I don't. As we get later into this, it's obviously going to be a little bit harder to predict. But man, it just goes to show how Goes to show how big early season games are to win. And this was a huge, huge first week in college football. You had a ton of top ranked teams facing each other. I'm sure the ratings for college football were through the roof. For a lot of these games, LSU, Wisconsin, I'm sure drew big numbers. Texas, Notre Dame, I'm sure drew big numbers, bigger than probably they normally would have. Sure, Oklahoma and Houston drew big numbers. Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama, USC. When was the last time you saw Alabama take on USC? And now you get a lot of now the turnaround of that is you get a lot of Division II school teams play this week. Florida State plays Charleston Southern. Houston plays Lamar. Georgia plays Nichols. Ole Miss plays Wofford. Texas A&M plays Prairie View A&M. LSU plays Jacksonville State. And a couple other lesser teams. Clemson plays Troy. Ohio State plays Tulsa. Michigan gets UCF. Oklahoma plays UL Monroe. Louisville plays Syracuse. Oklahoma State plays Central Michigan. Baylor has SMU. Miami has Florida Atlantic. So I mean, you get that's the caveat because these big schools have to get their FCS SmackDown game in. So instead of getting it in week one, you get them in week two now. You get the big win or you get the demoralizing loss in week one, and then start kicking it into gear again next week. Get into a couple more things on the rankings before we get into Major League Baseball when we return. Do not go away. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. All right, we're back. Just if you guys are interested, there's a lot of World Cup qualifiers being played over the course of these next couple days. If you're looking on BN Sports, you'll find Colombia versus Venezuela. Fox Sports 1, Switzerland versus Portugal. BN Sports in Spanish, you'll find Ecuador versus Brazil. Also on ESPN Deportes, you'll find Sweden versus Holland. Sweden actually just scored to put that game at 1-1. Sweden just scored as I turned the channel to it. So you got those games going on right now. If you are interested, Sweden actually leads Portugal right now, 2-0. Did I say Sweden or Switzerland? Leads Portugal. It's Switzerland leads Portugal 2-0. Sweden just took a 1-0 lead over the Netherlands. Fox Sports 2, you'll find Belarus versus France. Again, all of these are World Cup qualifiers. Belarus and France right now about to go into the second half. About to go into halftime right now. Actually, draw it at 0-0. So you got a couple of World Cup qualifiers if you're interested today in the world of soccer. But going back to these college football rankings, I think it's important to note that the top 13 all won games. Michigan State did not move. Clemson and Alabama, of course, did not move. Even though Florida State did get more first place votes than Clemson did. Clemson got 2 first place votes. Florida State got 4. Ohio State didn't get any, and Michigan actually got 1. The remaining 54 went to Alabama, as you would have assumed, who were clear of Clemson by 102 points, 15-18 to 14-16. The top 13 teams are 1-0. With a bigger win by TCU, they could have gotten 14 and Oklahoma would have fallen to 15. If TCU would have put down South Dakota State the way they were expected to, maybe 59-14, 59-10, somewhere in that range, TCU, I would say, would have been 14th. But because they played such a close game, they stay behind Oklahoma. If Houston would have beaten Oklahoma by more, I think they probably could have gone up a little bit more. They only trailed Michigan by 18 points to get into 5th. So they were very, very close to get to where they were. Georgia, Wisconsin, Texas, not as much Wisconsin, but definitely Georgia and definitely Texas, I think are ranked too high. I think Texas should be somewhere between the 13-17 range, and I think Georgia should be right around in that range as well. Wisconsin beat a number 5 team in regulation. And Georgia, who came into the week at number 18, gets bumped up 9 positions for beating a 22 by 9. That's too much. Tennessee rightfully falls. I don't think they should have fallen all the way down to 17, but when it goes to overtime against Appalachian State, you do not deserve to keep your top 10 rank. Not by a long shot. Notre Dame, I think, fell appropriately. Maybe they could have fallen maybe to 16, but I think 18 is appropriate. Ole Miss, I think, fell appropriate down to 19. LSU, I think, probably should have fallen to 22 instead of 21. But other than that, I don't have a problem with it. You have six games in the top 25 this week with FCS teams. You have about another 4 or 5 against low-ranking Division One teams. So that'll probably even some of it out. Stanford is going to fall a position or two. Michigan State will fall a position or two this week because they have a bye. So when you're looking at those rankings, of course they're going to change. But you can already tell that Stanford and Michigan State are going to drop a place or two because they have a bye. I would not. I would expect maybe Georgia to fall a place. Maybe Houston as well because they're facing FCS teams. Ole Miss, LSU. This is a time for them to try to stamp back and try to start moving back up. Notre Dame, because they're an independent, remain to have a very, very tough schedule. They'll play Nevada next week. Not a walkover game by any means. I mean, Nevada can play you tough. We've seen Nevada take down Boise State just a couple years ago, and Boise State was a national title competitor. Other teams, Florida again dropping out. Florida and UCLA remain the top 2 teams behind Miami. Boise State, Utah, San Diego State, North Carolina, Nebraska, Auburn, Pitt, BYU, Navy, West Virginia, and Colorado. The other teams receiving points to get into the top 25. So really the way it looks is if Baylor, Oregon, or Miami slip up this week, Florida, UCLA, Boise State, Utah, San Diego State even are right there to try to take advantage. Especially since Florida and Miami are only separated by 20 points, 137 to 117. So they are very, very close to each other. Now you go to Major League Baseball, where again, both the Mets and the Yankees played before we went on air yesterday because of the Labor Day holiday. A lot of games were played in the afternoon. Now you get into games tonight. If you're looking at it, you would expect the Mets to win, even though they are putting Rafael Montero up. The Mets put Rafael Montero up on the mound tonight in Cincinnati. He had a solid outing his last time through, his last time up in the rotation, and those are the kind of outings that the Mets have been looking for out of pitchers while guys like DeGrom are having issues. To be perfectly honest, I think it's just a fact of DeGrom has had such a poor season as far as consistency at the beginning and the back end that they're probably just going to try to keep him playing as much as possible right now, to where if he does have something bothering him, they just take it out of their minds. Mats, I don't think you're going to see pitch again the rest of the season. Syndergaard has been off a little bit lately, even though he did have a great outing against Washington. Then you see these guys like Lugo, Gazelman, and now Montero coming in to try to help just stabilize the Mets right now. Both teams surprisingly do have their lineups up, which we'll get to in just a second. But for the Mets, again, it'll be Rafael Montero. Will make another spot start in place of Jacob deGrom, who is skipping his turn due to inflammation in his forearm. In his last big league outing, Montero issued 6 walks but kept the Marlins scoreless through 5 innings. So, again, walk the ballpark if you want. As long as you keep him scoreless, you're all right. He goes up against Brandon Finnegan For the Cincinnati Reds, who's 8-10 with a 4.19 ERA. Finnegan coming off of one of the best outings of the season, striking out 9 in his game against the Angels. Struck out 9 in over 7 innings on 84 pitches. Innings will be Finnegan's key going forward. He's at 154 and 2/3, which is a career high for him. And the Reds will likely transition him to the bullpen eventually. So this or the next one could be Finnegan's final start of the season. One problem that the Mets might face is that Finnegan is a lefty, and the Mets have not been hitting well off of lefties recently. The Mets lineup looks like this. It'll be Jose Reyes, Asdrubal Cabrera, Yoenis Cespedes. Wilmer Flores gets to start at first. Jay Bruce, Travis d'Arnaud, Curtis Granderson, Matt Reynolds, and then Rafael Montero. So all the guys you sat out yesterday, Reyes, Cabrera, Cespedes, Granderson, all back in the lineup. For the Reds, it'll be Jose Peraza. In center, Jack Cozart, Joey Votto, Adam Duvall, Brandon Phillips, Scott Schiebler, Ivan De Jesus, Tucker Barnhart, and Brandon Finnegan. That will be the lineup for the Cincinnati Reds this evening. And of course, the guy you're looking at to try to keep under control is Duvall. Without a doubt, is Duvall. The Yankees will go up against the Toronto Blue Jays. The Yankees will throw up Luis Cessa, who will take the hill for his 4th Major League start, coming off a no decision last time out against Kansas City, in which he allowed 4 runs, 3 of them earned in 6 innings. As a starter, Cessa is 2-0 with a 3 ERA. He's 4-0 with a 4.17 ERA overall this season. He will go up against Aaron Sanchez, who's 13-2 on the year with a 2.88 ERA. Toronto keeping an eye on his workload, but so far he has delivered every step of the way this season following a 10-day layoff. Sanchez returned to the rotation on Wednesday to face the Orioles and allowed 1 earned run over 6 innings. So again, since Toronto is watching Sanchez's workload, if the Yankees can hit him and hit him early, not even hit him early, but get his pitch count up early, then they have a chance of seeing a lot of Toronto's bullpen in this game. The Blue Jays have not put out their lineup yet, but the Yankees have. The Yankees will put out Brett Gardner, Jacoby Ellsbury, Gary Sanchez, Didi Gregorius, Starlin Castro, Brian McCann, Chase Headley, Aaron Judge, and Tyler Austin. That will be the lineup for the New York Yankees this evening. We'll get you caught up to date with the scores in for all of the European qualifiers for the World Cup, for the 2018 World Cup. Then we'll get to the World Cup of Hockey, a little bit of Islander news, and we may, if we have time, we'll touch on the NFL, saving most of that for tomorrow and Thursday. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away. All right, we're back. Really quick, just to go over the scores for the European qualifiers for the 2018 World Cup. You have 9 matches going on right now. Belarus and France currently draw 0-0. All of these matches at the half, by the way. Bulgaria leading Luxembourg 1-0. Sweden over the Netherlands 1-0. Switzerland over Portugal 1-0. Andorra over Latvia Andorra and Latvia no score. Faroe Islands versus Hungary at no score. Cyprus trail Belgium 1-0. Bosnia and Herzegovina leading Estonia 2-0, and Gibraltar trailing Greece 4-1. So those are the scores for the European qualifiers, day one for the World Cup. To be perfectly honest, I had no idea. No idea these were starting today. Just flipping through the channels and happened to stumble upon it. Another thing I didn't know was starting, and they're starting actually very, very soon, is the World Cup of Hockey, which the actual tournament starts on the 17th. But as far as pre-tournament games, those start on Thursday. Those start on Thursday with 3 games: the Czech Republic versus Russia, Sweden, Finland, and Europe versus North America. Now, here's the thing with North America, Team North America. There's Team Canada, Team USA, and then Team North America. I'm assuming Team North America is made up of the players that are good but not good enough to be on Team Canada or Team USA. That's what I'm guessing. Team Canada will play Team USA on September 9th. So that's Friday at the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio. That game will be at 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPNU or Sportsnet if you're in Canada. Now, the next time Team USA will play will be the very next night in Ottawa at the Canadian Tire Center. Team USA versus Canada on ESPN3 and Sportsnet. The rest of the way for Team USA, they play one more game on the 13th, so a week from today. They will play Finland at the Verizon Center in Washington, D.C. at 7 o'clock on ESPN and Sportsnet. So ESPN, very much a major part of the World Cup of Soccer, which will be starting on the 17th. All of the games will be on ESPN, either on ESPN, ESPN2, or ESPN3. Except for the first U.S.-Canada game, which is on Thursday, which will be on ESPNU. The actual tournament, again, starts on September 17th, which is not this Saturday upcoming, but next. There will be 2 groups for these 8 teams. Group A will feature Team Canada, the Czech Republic, Team Europe, and Team USA. Group B will be Team Finland, Team North America, Russia, and then Sweden. USA will open up the tournament on ESPN2 against Team Europe at 3:30 Eastern next Saturday. Their next game will be against Team Canada on ESPN on Tuesday, September 20th. After that, they will play on Thursday the 22nd against the Czech Republic to complete the round robin stage of the tournament. Top 2 teams get taken. Then you go into the semifinal. Team A, whoever finishes first in Group A will face who finishes second in Group B, and whoever finishes Group B first in Group B will face whoever finishes second in Group A. Then the final, which is very interesting, the final is a best of 3, which starts Tuesday the 27th. And if it goes to 3, we'll finish on Saturday, October 1st. So that is how the tournament will go. The NHL season, I think, has actually been delayed by this. I'm not entirely sure. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen the schedule. I don't remember if I genuinely don't remember if they play the preseason without the guys playing in the World Cup, or if they hold everything like they do when it comes to the Olympics. Because when it comes to the Winter Olympics in 2 years, they will hold everything in the middle of the season for those players to come back. Looking through. Now, just because they're my team and it was the first I picked, yeah, they'll play the preseason without those players. And the regular season starts on October 13th, so normal time is when the regular season will start. And the regular season starts with the Islanders and Rangers at Madison Square Garden. Oh, baby. Now, speaking of the Islanders, if you are an Islanders fan and you have been to the Barclays Center to watch a game, you know that it is not the most pleasant experience that you can have. There are a lot of issues with the sight lines. It's not the greatest arena for it. It's very, very small. The place isn't loud, which, okay, relax on it being loud. But you got to relax on it all, because remember, this arena was not built with hockey in mind. This arena was built solely with basketball in mind. This was never meant to be a hockey arena. Now, if you look at the contract, the Islanders have 24 years left on a 25-year lease, just about as bad as the DiPietro contract. But the contract has been brought back up because Newsday has revealed a couple of specifics about the opt-out clause of the contract, which is what is expected to take place. There are a couple of agreements that have to be met. Okay, and I'm going to be reading directly off of WFAN.com here. The Islanders can leave after 3 seasons if they deem the situation unsatisfactory, but only after quote-unquote good faith discussions are held between the team and the arena. So I'm assuming that means, okay, you guys, for the press, you guys can leave for whatever reasons you want to leave, but for the press, you guys are going to leave we're going to leave on good terms. It's what I can only assume good faith discussions will mean. One reason why the Islanders may choose to opt out is because Barclays currently takes home the bulk of the regular season revenue, while the Islanders receive an annual 1.5% increase on the $53.5 million payment they started to receive from Barclays last season. Another factor that could play into a potential move by the team is the NBA's Nets having scheduling preferences something that likely contributed to the hockey team not having all that many Saturday home games. So, again, the preference goes to the team who the arena is for, and in this case, it's the Nets. That shouldn't be a surprise. Following the conclusion of the 2016-17 season, the Islanders and Barclays have until January 1st, 2018, so the turn of the new year 2018, to renegotiate the terms of the lease if no deal is reached, and assuming the lease as is deemed to have problems. The sides have until January 30th, 2018 to submit in writing their intention to opt out. So if the Islanders do not reach an agreement with the Barclays Center by January 1st, 2018, they have until the end of January to submit in writing that they are leaving. If the Islanders choose to opt out, they can leave after their third or fourth season in Brooklyn. If Barclays chooses to get out of the deal, the Islanders must leave after the fourth season. Okay, so if the Islanders want out, they can leave after next season or the year after. So they can leave after. So we're going into 16-17. The Islanders, if the Islanders choose to opt out, they can leave after 17-18 or 18-19. If the arena pulls out, they have to leave after 18-19. Okay. One thing that seems unlikely at this point is that the Islanders have a new arena built in time to coincide with a potential opt-out. Given the red tape that comes with building in the New York City area and the relatively small window at which they'd have to get everything done, that is, of course, assuming they don't choose to opt out and play temporarily somewhere else. The Nassau Coliseum, which just recently got renovated. New co-owner John Ledecky seemed to admit as much during an interview on the NHL Network 2 weeks ago, and they touched on the issue again in last week's memorial marking the one-year anniversary of the death of legendary coach Al Arbour, when he reaffirmed that Barclays would remain the Islanders' home, quote, for years to come. So a lot has to get done, and a lot has to get done very, very soon. And you guys, I mean, again, for those of you who went to the games at the Barclays Center last year, you guys know the issues that they had. High ticket prices, bad sight lines, lines at concessions were dreadful. Insufficient train schedules. I mean, you guys know there were a lot of problems last season. That I think will be worked out this season as far as the train situation, because now they know what kind of traffic to expect and from where the high influx of traffic is going to come. Because usually you have to experience it first before you have to experience it on a full level scale before you can change it. Or before you can improve on it. So I think a lot of those issues, unfortunately, the sightline seats, that's going to remain an issue. But as far as concessions, travel, public transport, a lot of that should change.